11 of Board Game Blitz, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network and a podcast about all things board games that you can listen to in less time than it takes to come to terms with how many board games you truly love in BGG's Top 1000. Board Game Blitz is sponsored by Grey Fox Games. This week, we're giving you our top 10 1 in 100 games. That is, our favorite games from each 100 of the top 1,000 games on BoardGameGeek. We've got a lot to get through, so here are your hosts,
Ambie
and Crystal. One quick announcement before we hop into the main episode, and that is that I, and possibly Ambie as well, are going to do some streaming to raise money for Extra Life. We have talked about Extra Life in the past. They are an organization that does video game and board game events to raise money for charity. Their story is actually really cool, so I recommend going to their website, which Ambie will link in the show notes. But on August 22nd and 23rd, they are doing, I think it's called Tabletop Appreciation Weekend. It's Tabletop something weekend. And so I'm going to do a whole bunch of live streaming on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/BoardGameBlitz. And I'm possibly going to have some friends doing some streaming as well. Some of that is a little bit nailed down, but the details are not completely ironed out, so I don't want to give too many details yet. Needless to say, if you enjoy watching people play board games and do other silly things on Twitch, August 22nd and 23rd, block your calendar off because it's going to be a lot of it. And I will be raising money for Extra Life, so if you're looking to do some charitable giving to a good cause, that is coming up, and I'm really excited about it. And Ambie, you said you're going to try and hop in when you can, right?
Yeah, which is rare, but...
Oh, it'll happen.
Probably evening specific time.
Yes, we'll definitely get Ambie in the evenings, if nothing else.
A couple of weeks ago, our friends the Brothers Murph over on YouTube published a top 10 1 in 100 games video, which is, they looked through the top 1,000 games on BGG, and then in each set of 100, they picked their favorite. So there was a top 10, but it's like one out of each 100.
Which, honestly, how has no one done this before? It seems like a fun idea, and I'm shocked that no one else has done this, or at least not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I don't watch all of the top 10s in existence, but yeah, so we decided to steal that idea and do our own
we're stealing
10
it.
1 in 100 games.
I mean, to our credit, or in our benefit though, they were asked their Patreon supporters for help naming that list because they weren't quite sure how to name it, and I came up with the name that they ended up using, so I'm now re-stealing my own name back for the type of list that we're doing also. All right. So we are skipping all of our other normal segments for this episode because we don't do top 10s that often and it's going to be hard to fit into 30 minutes. So let's hop right into it.
Yep.
So my favorite game from the BoardGameGeek games ranked 1 to 100 is Battlestar Galactica. No one is surprised with this. There is not a whole lot I could say about Battlestar Galactica that I have not said in the past. Needless to say, I have loved this game for like a decade now. I still love it. It's great. And that is why it is my favorite from the BGG Top 100.
My favorite from the Top 100 was a little harder to pick, but I went with Le Havre, which is Tom Vassel's favorite game.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Le Havre was published in 2008 and is designed by Uwe Rosenberg. It's a economic city building game, and I really like you're building up, you're getting like different goods and then converting them into better goods and you have these buildings that you buy and then other people can use them and pay you, and it's really fun, and you get ships. So yeah, I really like it. I've only played it at 3 players though, which I think is the best player count, so I really like Le Havre.
My favorite game from BoardGameGeek's 101 to 200 ranked games. This was hard. This was very hard for me because the game that I ranked as my number 3 game of all time is in this grouping, but I'm not choosing it, which doesn't make any sense logically. So don't try to apply logic to anything I'm going to pick today, apparently. I am choosing Time Stories. Ambie and I have discussed Time Stories, and at least I have discussed my disappointment with how the expansions played out. But I still think that as a concept and as a series of games and as an idea and as a story, like, even though it ended disappointingly, the experiences I had with Time Stories are epic and memorable in a lot of different ways. So when I went with my heart, I guess, Time Stories won out over Near and Far. And so that is my pick.
Wow.
I know, I'm surprised too. I love Near and Far. It is wonderful, but for whatever, I think it's because Time Stories does something different than a lot of the other games on my list. So maybe that's why.
All right. So for my pick in the 101 to 200 category, that's a lot harder to say than like my number 2.
I know. Yeah, I don't really know how maybe by the end of this we'll have figured out a better way to do this.
But anyways, my pick was tough because a couple of my favorite games are on here, and it was between this one and Dungeon Pets, and I went with the Resistance Avalon. Even though I think in my latest top 100 Dungeon Pets was above this, but I don't know. My game tastes change.
Doing the list this way makes you make interesting decisions, which I think is why I wanted to do this.
Yeah. But yeah, the Resistance Avalon is a social deduction game that I played a lot when I was first getting into the hobby, and I really, really like it. Yeah, I haven't played it recently, but there's like a recent Kickstarter where they have it, have an updated version of it. So I was thinking about it again and how much I really love the Resistance and the Resistance Avalon. So I think that's probably why it won out over Dungeon Pets. But yeah, I really like the deduction part of this game because like no one dies and you have some information, and the Merlin part is good because Merlin knows who all the bad guys are, and the bad guys have to figure out who Merlin is, so the bad guys have something to think about. They don't have all the information, which in a lot of social deduction games the bad guys know who everyone is, so it's not as fun to be a bad guy. But I love the Resistance Avalon.
If there is an online implementation of this, whether legitimate or not, I'm not certain, either way, I would love to play this with you. Like, if we could get a group of people together, I think this would be a fun one to play online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it needs, well, I like playing with like 6 or 7, so we need some more people.
Who knows? Maybe we could do a late night stream of this during the Extra Life weekend.
Maybe.
I'll have to look and see if that's even possible. All right, my pick for the Board Game Geek games ranked 201 to 300 is Kingdomino. The more time that passes, the more I fall in love with this tile laying game. I also own Queendomino, and I never play it and never will again, probably. Honestly, I love the simplicity of Kingdomino. I still enjoy it every single time I play it. There's something about it that scratches my brain in the right way, and I just love it. It's great. So that is why I chose Kingdomino for this pick.
In 201 to 300, there were so many good games.
Oh yeah, you had a lot to choose from in this group.
There were a couple in my top 10, and then there were a couple of Splotters that I've only played once, but I really like. But I went with Space Alert, which is my number 1 game right now. It's a real-time cooperative game, which you should know I love by now. That's
you
like
do love
my
those.
favorite type. Yeah, but it's really complicated, but so your group needs to really know how to play, but once you know how to play, it's like really fun trying to program your movement in the time limit and then like see what happens. And when you do win and everything ends up what you were planning, then it's really, really cool. So Space Alert is my favorite out of the 201 to 300 range.
My pick for the games ranked 301 to 400 was a little bit tough for me. I ended up going with Stockpile, which is a simple stock market game of insider trading. When I first heard about it, I thought it was going to be boring. It was a play-to-win game at a small convention in St. George, Utah, and we honestly just pulled it off the shelf because it was in the play-to-wins, and I'm so glad I did because I've loved this game ever since I played it back in, I think, 2015. I was really close to picking Mansions of Madness for this grouping. I love Mansions of Madness too, but again, I went with Stockpile, I think because it's different than the other picks on my list. So if you are a person like me who does not necessarily always enjoy games with stocks and trading and things like that, Stockpile is super fun and I highly recommend it to anybody. And it's pretty easy to learn, honestly.
This category also had a lot of games that I like. I think most of them had a lot of games that I like. Yeah. So, but then some of them I've only played once, so I didn't feel comfortable like knowing if I liked them more. So I ended up going with Monikers, which I've talked about before. It's a party game like Time's Up, And it's just like always really fun. You get like inside jokes by the time you're done with it just because of how you've been acting things out.
Yeah, Monikers create some of the funniest moments. Like, it's just...
Yes. I was tempted to go with Hanabi, but I haven't played that in a long time, and I got kind of tired of it after playing. I think I've played like 120 something times, but
That is a lot of Hanabi.
yeah. So, like right now, I think I would rather play Monikers than Hanabi if I had a group to play it with. You need a lot of people.
My pick for the games ranked 401 to 500 was pretty easy. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It is one that people do not talk about enough, and it makes me sad, and that is Runebound 3rd edition. Technically, Runebound 2nd edition also shows up in the BoardGameGeek Top 1000, but I did not put both of the games on the list, even though I do love both 2nd and 3rd edition. I just went with 3rd edition here. I won't lie, I was hoping in Fantasy Flight's in-flight report that they did before Gen Con Online that they would say anything about Runebound at all. They don't usually, obviously, but it is a game that I still love, and it is just, you're going on an adventure, and it feels like you're going on an adventure. And so that's why I love it. I will say, though, that I am curious to see whether Return to Dark Tower from Restoration Games replaces this for me. I do love Runebound, but having played the prototype of Return to Dark Tower, I could see Runebound somewhat getting replaced in my own mind by Return to Dark Tower. So we'll see where that goes, but Runebound is my pick for 401 to 500.
My pick for 401 to 500 was Vinhos, and this is the original edition, not the deluxe edition. I think the deluxe edition is in like 101 to 200, but I haven't played that one, so I don't know if I like that one. But yeah, I've actually only played Vinhos once, but I really liked it, and I want to play it again. So yeah, this one was a weaker group of 100 for me. But yeah, I like Vinhos. It's an economic thematic game by Vital
Economic
Lacerda.
Thematic game. That's a very... Yeah.
It's by Vital Lacerda. He makes like heavy Euro games that are also very thematic, and it's about making wine. So you like go around, get stuff, make wine, and like there's an action, a 3x3 grid of actions, and you move your worker around to do the actions. And like I think if someone moves onto your space, they have to pay you, which is interesting. So yeah, I want to play it more, and it's a really neat theme, and I like it. So that's Vinhos.
I happen to have found out that a lot of the games that I love are dispersed throughout the BoardGameGeek Top 1000 by doing this process. Yep. And it's really hard for me to, when I look at the 501 to 600 ranked games, to not choose Star Trek Ascendancy. I will admit, Ascendancy has fallen for me over the past couple of years, but I still love it. It's still the best Star Trek board game as far as I am concerned, and I have a blast with it every single time I play it. If you are a Star Trek fan and a board game fan, and you want a big epic Star Trek adventure in a board game, this is the one. There are other games that do things well, but for me, even if this one has its issues, it's still the one that feels the most like Star Trek, and I love it. I do not own all of the expansions. I stopped buying them at a certain point because I was not playing it frequently enough, although I will admit when I see them on sale occasionally I'm very tempted to click the button, but we'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, Star Trek Ascendancy is my pick for 501 to 600.
For my pick for 501 to 600, I had to go with The Mind, which is a cooperative card game where you're trying to play cards in order, but you can't tell other people what cards you have, and it's all real time. So it's a real time cooperative game. But yeah, this one I've played 109 times, and so I really like playing it. We play it with different groups. I play it with Toby a lot, and we play it with our friends. So it's like really easy to learn, and we've taught it to a bunch of different people, and almost everyone has really enjoyed it when we play it with them. So it's like a really easy to get played game, and it just fits in every situation. So that's why The Mind is one of my favorite games.
My pick for the games ranked 601 to 700 is also a game that's pretty highly ranked in my top games of all time, and that is Pursuit of Happiness. The Pursuit of Happiness is essentially a worker placement game, but it's like the gamer's version of the game of life. Like, you're taking on jobs and relationships and hobbies, and with some of the expansions, you have like community events that are going on and experiences. They've added in a lot of content over the years to this game, and it just makes it more and more exciting. And I really enjoy, you don't like role play your character, but I enjoy kind of seeing the progression of my like person's life. Like, oh, first they were a baker who does marathons on the side, and now there's something else completely throughout the course of the game. And it's neat because it kind of shows you that progression of how people change as they grow. And at the end of the game, you die, which is weirdly appropriate and also a little sad, but that is how the end of the game gets triggered, is once everyone is dead. I also had a tough time with this group specifically, because there is another game in this group that I really, really love, and that is Sprawlopolis. Sprawlopolis is from Button Shy Games, and it is the coolest 18-card cooperative game that you are likely to find anywhere. I love it so much, but Pursuit of Happiness really has my heart here, and so that is why it was my pick for 601 to 700.
Yeah, I saw Pursuit of Happiness when I was scrolling. There's a lot of good games in this category too.
Yeah,
Like,
this group for like just randomly has
Yeah.
like especially a couple of good party games in here too. Like it's a tough grouping.
Yeah. So, but like one of my favorite games also appeared on this group and knocked out all the other ones. So my pick is Tragedy Looper, which I've mentioned a lot as one of my favorite games. It's a deduction game, one versus many, and it's very thinky. You need the right group to play it because it's all pure deduction and you're thinking the whole time. But it's time travel themed. You're like trying to solve and prevent bad things from happening by going back in time and doing the same thing, and like you play different actions on the characters to make things happen and then figure out what you need to do to prevent the things from happening. And then the one player is actively preventing you from doing that. So yeah, it's really fun, really brain burny. But I really enjoy Tragedy Looper, and that's why it knocked out all the other games in this category for me.
My pick for the games ranked 701 to 800 was surprisingly easy. This group for me contains a lot of games that I like, but not a lot of games that I love. So lots of games that I'm happy to play just about any time, but not games that I'm like itching to play, compelled to play. The one that I keep coming back to is Ink and Gold, or as it is more officially known on BoardGameGeek, Diamant. I don't know how it is pronounced. What's funny, I don't actually own this game. But I have played it so many times. There are people in my group that own it, and I've played it on Board Game Arena a lot. It's a great little push your luck game. Rules are very simple. It's pretty quick to play. It's one of those games where, like a lot of good push your luck games, even if you are way, way, way behind, you sometimes have that chance of coming back from nothing and winning the whole thing. And I kind of like those moments, even if they are few and far between. So yeah, that is why Ink and Gold is my pick for 701 to 800. And it's right at the top. It's 701 on the dot. So inevitably it'll move before we release the episode and someone will come back and tell me I got this wrong.
My pick for this category was Kitchen Rush, which is another real-time cooperative game. It's about you're in a restaurant fulfilling orders for people. So you're gathering ingredients, making food, and giving them to customers. So it's very hectic, and you have these timers, like actual hourglass timers that you flip over to be your workers for the worker placement part. So I really like that. I haven't played like its successor, Rush MD, which I've heard is better, but I really want to play it at some point. But yeah, so for now, I still really like Kitchen Rush.
All right, my pick for the games ranked 801 to 900 is a game that now came out 7 years ago, and that seems, I can't believe that it was that long ago. It doesn't feel like it. And I feel like it's a game that does not get talked about enough anymore, and that is Steam Park. Steam Park is a game where you are constructing an amusement park for robots. And when the TV show Westworld came out, I think I talked about like I should retheme Steam Park to be Westworld themed because it's robots and a theme park, and I never ended up doing that. But This game is really neat. It does have a real-time aspect where you're rolling dice quickly to allocate what actions you're going to take during the round, and then there's a spatial aspect of placing the things into your park. I really enjoy it quite a bit, and I think it does not get talked about enough anymore, but it is definitely still in my collection, so that is why Steam Park was my choice for 801 to 900.
My choice for 801 to 900 was Witness, which is a cooperative deduction whispering game.
There aren't a lot of those, I would say.
I guess memory game, because so like every person has some part of information of this case that you're trying to solve, and then you whisper it to the person next to you, but you're only whispering in one direction. So the person, like if you're only whispering to your right, the person to your left only gets that information through a game of telephone, because the person to your right whispers to the person to their right, and then like it continues. There's 4 players total. So you might not get all of the information, and then you have to answer these questions about the case. So there's some deduction too. And it's really fun because I like logic puzzles. It's basically logic puzzles mixed with the whispering part, but it needs exactly 4 players, so it's hard to get it played. So that's Witness.
I guess, so Witness is like one of the few games that I've heard about now that you definitely cannot play over the internet. There would be no way.
Yeah.
That's a game that's probably not getting played anytime soon, I would imagine. Like, you don't want to be whispering in people's ears right now. I guess, actually, if you were playing while wearing masks, I wonder if it would, like, make it better or worse.
Well, if you have a family of 4 that's old enough to play it.
Yeah, if you are already quarantined with enough people to play Witness, then you could do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've still never played it and am curious, even though the idea of people whispering in my ear kind of weirds me out a little bit. All right, my final pick, which is for the games ranked 901 to 1000. It was funny, I was scrolling through the list, and I was like, oh, easy pick. And I put the game down that I was going to say, and I am going to say it. But then I saw Letter Jam, and I had a moment of visceral, like, oh no, because I love Letter Jam so much. I have to shout out Letter Jam here because it's just so amazing, but it could not take over Legacy of Dragonholt. Legacy of Dragonholt, man, generic fantasy worlds typically do not interest me that much, but for whatever reason, the world of Terranoth, which is where both Runebound and Legacy of Dragonholt are set, me and Terranoth, we get along. I like it a lot, and Legacy of Dragonholt did something unique that no other game has duplicated exactly yet, although I have heard that some newer games like Role Player Adventures are doing similar things, so I'm kind of interested to find out that. But honestly, Legacy of Dragonholt, it's one of the only games that I've played solo and would prefer to play it that way, and will play it again, and I just adore it. It's a great story. It's well written. Nikki Valens did amazing work on it, and I cannot wait to see more from Nikki in the future, especially if it is like the Legacy of Dragonholt. So that is why it is my pick for 901 to 1000.
Yeah, similarly to you, I saw my pick, and I wasn't expecting there to be that much of a choice here, but then I was scrolled through. I also saw Letter Jam and Legacy of Dragonholt. I'm like, oh, those are good too. But I went with 1889, History of Shikoku Railways, because that's one of I think it's my most played 18xx game now. But yeah, it's one of my favorite 18xx games, and it's one that we use a lot to introduce new people, and we played it a lot, and like it can be different each time we play too, which is really neat depending on how we play and how aggressive we are. So I really enjoy playing 1889, so that's why that made my list. Plus I have to get an 18xx game on the list, right?
I honestly so how many 18xx games are in the top 1000?
I saw, I think like 3 or 4 maybe.
I mean, sure. That's cool.
Because 1830 and 1846 were there, I think. I don't like 1846, and 1830 I was further up, and I don't remember which part it was in. Maybe like the Space Alert part or something. I don't know. But
no, I'm glad to see a bunch of them up there. Not because I think people dislike those games, but because I think, fewer people in general have played them, and so I'm glad to see that those types of games are showing up in the top 1000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess more people are playing them now that Toby has launched his website and you all are allowing people to play 18xx games online more easily now.
Yeah, I wonder what 18 Chesapeake is at. Okay, 18 Chesapeake is at 1909 rank, but maybe it'll increase.
All right. Well, in theory, if people enjoyed this list, we could do the next 1,000.
That one might be harder, though.
I honestly think that might end up being more interesting because obviously a lot of our favorite games ended up in this list, and I think that would be less common. So if you all want to hear us do games 1,000 to 2,000, let us know, whether that is in an episode or maybe we could do a YouTube video or a Twitch stream. Who knows? We could do whatever you want, but I want to hear from you all. And if you have any other ideas for topics for the show, shout them at us. I will admit, during the pandemic, my brain has been worse at coming up with ideas, so we'll take whatever we can get from you all. But before we sign off today, we have a very special guest who has been with us this entire episode, just patiently and kindly sitting by and listening to us blabber on and on. He is one of our Patreon supporters, and we love him. His name is Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So what do you think of this as a topic of discussion, like this top 1,000, one for each 100 thing? Do you, like, why haven't more people done this? Is it interesting? Or maybe you could just be like, no, this was not that interesting.
No, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I was kind of poking through the list as you guys went through it to try to sort of put together my own. And it was interesting to
hear, yeah.
Well, it was interesting to see how many of, like, just a regular top 10 get dropped out within the first 200. Like, by the time you get to 800 through 1,000, it's, at least for me, it was slim pickings.
Were there any games that jumped out at you as, like, kind of surprising? Like, oh, like, yeah, this is up here and I love it.
Yeah. nimmt is a game that I only got into playing it since the pandemic, just playing it online. But
on BoardGame Arena, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw nimmt when I was scrolling through, and I love that game, especially playing it online, too. Any other games that you noted as some of your faves?
Yeah, as I went through, I mean, I definitely had a designer preference, because I pulled out 3 Reiner Knizia games. I mean, I guess when you make like 700 of them, they're bound to be there.
Yeah.
But I had, Modern Art, High Society, and Colossal Arena.
Oh, I've never played Colossal Arena.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's a nice, light betting game.
Okay. I mean, that's not surprising considering it's Knizia. Yep. But I've only played Modern Art once, just a few months ago, right before the pandemic. But I love High Society. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us for our recording session today. I am looking forward to having you join us again in the future. And if you out there want to be cool like Matt and hang out with us while we record an episode and listen to all of our bloopers in real time, head over to patreon.com/BoardGameBlitz and check it out.
And that's it for this week's Board Game Blitz. Visit our website, BoardGameBlitz.com, for video and blog content, as well as to get links to all our social media pages. This episode was sponsored by Grey Fox Games. For the month of August, you can get 20% off your order of all non-exclusive items sold at GreyFoxGames.com by entering the promo code AugustBlitz at checkout. Arcano Rising, a drafting and engine building game of moons and magic, is on Kickstarter through August 28th. Back it today to get exclusive component upgrades. Grey Fox Games, quality games cleverly crafted. Support our show and get cool perks for as little as $1 a month by visiting patreon.com/BoardGameBlitz. As a patron, you'll get access to pre-edit recordings and our private Slack channel, where you can chat with us and other Blitzketeers every day. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Morrow. Technical support provided by Toby Mao. Board Game Blitz is part of the Dice Tower Network. Until next time, we're going through them all, ranking one of each. You got to hear the final top 10. We should play them when we meet. Bye, everyone.
Bye.